Good evening, everyone. I wish I could be with you, but this Parkinson's disease has taken its toll. But nonetheless, we're going to sally forth. Someone asked me a while back how I got started in photography and in sports writing. And I think you have to go back a few years to find out what the start was. It all started back in the 1960s when my friend Bob Tingley and Milt Northrup met me at Randall's, and in between beers, we had a lot of things to say. But one of the things that Milt Northrup, who had just gotten a job with the Register as a sports writer, Milt Northrup had the bright idea of giving Russ McCreven the chance to show his wares in terms of writing. Where he got this idea is beyond me, but he kind of thought, I think he had seen some writing I had done and was taken by it and thought I would make a good sports writer. Again, I don't know why he said that, but or believed that. Anyway, it was something that I had not even thought about in terms of writing, and I didn't realize what the amount of work involved. Actually, going up and down the stairs at the old arena with my typewriter, recording what was going on, recording what was going on the ice. I think the very first games I did were hockey games at the arena. That was one of the that was the first experience I had. I didn't realize that there were 3 games interjected through 3 district league teams, plus Amity, including West Haven and Hamden, and it was quite an event. The first games were at the arena, and then on it became an expanded job. Actually, I covered high school sports. Not getting a byline, by the way, but doing quite a few games. And there were a lot of exciting games. West Haven beating Amity for the state championship was one of the earliest memories I had. But almost every season there would be one outstanding game. Mainly the ones you remember are the ones that were like state championship games. Yeah, I covered other sports. Quick story about a man who was a legend in his time. His name is Frank Grisafi, is East Haven coach. And the reason I mention him is that Frank was, as I said before, well known in East Haven and West Haven too. But one of the first assignments I got as a sports writer, which was about basketball. Frank was a basketball coach at East Haven, and one of my early assignments was I got lost in the environs of East Haven going to the game on my way to cover it for the Register. I got there a little before the game, not in time enough to introduce myself to Mr. Grisafi. It was certainly Mr. Grisafi because I had no idea how you approach a man who's a living legend. So finally, the game is over, but the bad news is just about to come. Not only did East Haven was East Haven heavily favored to win this CIAC game, but it was his misfortune to have a rookie sports writer covering the game. And as they waited after the post-game speech by the coach, which the sports writers are not allowed, but Grisafi was a man who we see as like the first person you didn't approach lightly. So my task was to find something to say and make it a fairly intelligent observation on my part and ask Coach Grisafi to give us his insight. Well, I really didn't do a very good job, and Grisafi couldn't have been a more generous person when it came to taking time out. All his regular people were leaving. I could still picture no, he was very, very generous in the sense that he took the time, and it probably was around 20 minutes or half an hour, to sit down with me and explain his strategy at the end of the game, which East Haven had lost, much to everyone's shock, certainly much to the chagrin of Coach Grisafi. But I always remember the fact that he had taken some time out to provide me with a good story. I have no idea who the other team was. I can't remember that far back. But it was, for me, a pivotal thing. Because here's the man who is known by everybody in East Haven, and certainly most sports fans in West Haven knew who he was. And the fact that he could take the time out to sit down and talk with me, not knowing who I was, I'm sure. He's just a rookie sports writer who he had never heard of, I'm sure. Which brings me to a point. That is, when you're as big a person as Frank Grisafi was, and I don't mean that physically, I mean as emotionally and as much of a hard-working person that he was, that you might wonder why he got to be the legend that he was. And it dawned on me that it was how generous he was in taking care of business, taking care of the little guy, and I was certainly the little guy by comparison to Frank Grisafi. That he got that way because he was generous to everybody, myself included. And that's true of all the great coaches, Whitey Puritan, Art Krause, Frank Biondi. I would be amiss if I didn't mention everyone, but I certainly don't want to leave anyone out. But they know who they are. The one thing I do want to leave you with is West Haven and suburban communities like West Haven are lucky to have coaches that are going to be remembered for years to come. And it's mainly those coaches who are out there on Saturday morning coaching on the sidelines at McCreven School or at the West Haven Bennett Rink. And no matter where they are in West Haven, they forward their best efforts. You may not seem that way, but there are 2 or 3 coaches to each team, and if you count it up, there are quite a few. Yeah, a lot of people who are often forgotten or not mentioned at all as coaches. They certainly put a lot into it, and that often gets unrecognized. If a coach is a winning coach, it's easy to get a good quote from a winning coach. They're happy, the kids are happy, and the fans ought to be happy too. But that's the thing about sports coaches, is they're there win or lose, and it's how they comport themselves in front of their kids, particularly the little kids. I'm referring mainly to the coaches of the Fundamental League, youth hockey, Little League itself. Those are the people that we should not forget. So I hope people remember that, not that Russ McCreven did this or that, but I may have pointed out things that other people did not realize and put those into words or into photos when I was doing photography. Thanks to Paul Hugheiler, who guided me into photography in the first place. And I learned from him a great deal. So don't forget those kids and the coaches. Don't forget the people behind the scenes. I want to thank the committee itself, particularly Shelby Poe and her husband Lou. I'll never forget your kindness in nominating me. And thanks to the committee. I know how much work you guys do well before the event. I was on the committee itself for about 15 years. Thanks very much. I appreciate it. Something I never thought I would see.